and welcome to the New World Review. I'm Grandline Waifu, and today we're getting all up in our feels, which is pretty common with this show, but this time it's not me getting into my feels, but the characters, and that's nice, isn't it? Let's discuss episodes 122 and 123. 122, and finally we get to see what the King and Netero are up to. There's a lot of posturing going on and a lot of narrowed eyes from Netero, but I also think that Netero has Knuckles' energy here. Having seen Mary looking after his girlfriend, there's less desire to kill him, which makes sense. What he is doing, or noting though, is that Mary is fighting to combine his ant and human forms. Now, I don't mind that Netero's behavior is like Knuckles, which might seem hypocritical, but it is not. And here's why. Ready? Netero thought it through and came up with a plan. Netero took the time to assess the situation and follow through. I don't know, but I think Netero also knows he ain't gonna survive this, especially after his first attack only smacked out a nosebleed. That is how he is not like Knuckle. That is why I'm okay with this. I feel like we've come a long way with Netero since his ogling of boobies back in the first arc. He's obviously the leader and well thought of for a reason. I'm not sure yet what all the hunters will take the blame business is. They'll take the blame for saving the planet or for killing a restricted creature. I don't know. I'm not actually sure. I feel like I've missed something along the way, or it hasn't been explained clearly enough. Netero's a good guy. Playful, boob-loving, and needs to learn to look at eyes occasionally, but generally well thought of and careful. That he's wearing his special shirt, special shorts, and special socks? He went to combat in his special socks. That he's wearing his special socks tell us either that he definitely is here to kill, or that he wants to die in his favorite outfit, and I can respect that, you know? What he's noticing is something that's been becoming clear to pretty much everyone at this point. Mary's conflicted. Mary's unsure if he's an ant or a man, and while he's trying so hard to be a man, the ant comes through, which is how Netero sees it. Except I'm not sure I do. I sort of see things the other way, and I'm not sure whether I'm right on this, but I feel as though the ant is the better and the human the worse, generally. We assume the internal conflict is ant equals evil and human equals good, but there are so many problematic humans in this world, and they so often have Nen abilities. By comparison, we see all these ants using their Nen for good and just to exist. Whether their good comes from being an ant or from being human, I'm really not sure, but I think Netero's assumption that it's the human who wants to be good is sort of misplaced. Or at the very least, I think what Netero's simplifying is a very complex issue. Ultimately, testing the king's resolve by challenging him to a duel without death is a fascinating way to do things. Getting kicked in the gooch for your troubles is equally fantastic. Ultimately, there is no way for Netero to understand or trust that the king's personality will stay the same once he's settled. I think there's a lot of respect on both sides, and that's going to make this fight all the more interesting to watch, because if Poof finds them thus engaged in pitched battle that doesn't look intentionally fatal, that traitorous heart of Poof's is going to spring out once more. More so if Mary's offering Netero a place by his side. Jigglypoof is a very complex yet utterly simple character, and I would argue one of the more devious, specifically defined characters. They all have their goals and follow them through, but few of the characters are so laser focused on exactly what they want that they'll betray every ally to get there. Poof doesn't seem to find it fun. He doesn't do it for cruelty's sake or seemingly revenge or anything like that. He does it because he has uncompromising values and just grimly gets to work. His thought processes are great, and it'll be interesting to see which of the locations he decides to commit his body to, the king or Komugi, which will best serve his needs or match his values. He's now heading to the best strategic position of all. He'll have all the information and the ability to do exactly what he needs to. Ultimately, I think it's going to depend on how he perceives the king is treating the human, and whether getting his name solidifies the ant or the human side. Shifting briefly to Gon and Pito, knowing the entire story of what happened has changed Gon in some way? Does he still have the same undying hatred? I'm not sure if the hatred is as strong now. His eyes softened, and in fairness, he's going to get what he wants, in theory. The most luck-filled thing of the episode was Pito not explaining how the king was carrying Komugi. If Jigglypoof had found that out, it would have complicated all sorts of things, but they didn't describe it because they didn't know how, which tells you everything about how Pito wants a caring, softer king, but doesn't really know what that actually means. It's quite beautiful, frankly, though heartbreaking when you consider how many ants remember their former lives. There's something pitiful about Pito wanting softness while being unable to identify it, and I hope we get to see more of that. Now, on to the episode The episode 1, the one that is after this one. This episode was a very odd one, but I suppose quite timely in that it confuses exactly what I started to question after watching the previous episode, which is the idea that we don't know whether it's the ants or the humans that are the monsters is an ongoing crisis for me, and seeing Welfin soften like that was an unexpectedly pleasant situation, especially after seeing and experiencing Ikalgo having that inner turmoil of not being able to be the monster he thinks he should be, or the monster he expects to be, which makes me wonder whether he thinks he should be able to kill without fear, and whether he thinks torture is a better outcome or a better thing to do. Like, I don't know, torture versus killing. Torture's pretty bad. There are things worse than death, you know? I find it interesting that as soon as he's in enough pain, he's absolutely fine to torture or hurt others, and I wonder what that says to the metaphor of ant versus human, especially since in his mind it's about protecting his friends and assuming he's going to die. Since he didn't know the conditions on Wolfboy's abilities, it was such a quick turnaround on the frankly disgusting centipede situation. I gagged at that. The quick turnaround on the centipede situation to what a great flaw to have built into an ability. The idea that the truth telling went so deep and that the need to get answers from one or the other was the key to unlocking and removing them is a beautiful outcome. Ikalgo being willing to sacrifice himself to the cause his friends have put themselves to is a powerful one. And it was in the learning of that I wonder whether he will kill now, whether he's been changed by that potential. Disabling rather than killing is a very specifically different behaviour, and I do wonder how it's going to be used from this point on, particularly given he's about to find Palm only to learn that she's somehow been antified by who exactly? She's the newest member of a next generation of ants, so I wonder who she'll have allegiance toward, or if she'll be the new queen ant. Maybe? The central eye or gem or whatever it is in the middle of her face suggests to me that she might be a queen, just because of the previous queen. But it could also be used to hark back to the gem she used to be able to see into, to see whoever she has seen before. So many scenes. When she's ready, she and the tiny baby are going to be odd additions to the ant farm. Back to Wolfboy though. There's so much to be said about his arc. He's always wanted to be the king behind the scenes, and now it makes sense. He couldn't be the king even in life, but he wanted to be close to the center of power because he was weak. There's a sadness in that that's hard to place, and Togashi has an interesting way of making sure we know about the traumatic characters' lives. So many of them have experienced trauma, but it seems so specifically targeted toward the evil or bad characters that it's as though we're supposed to forgive them for being the way they are, maybe forgetting that we also have characters like Killua, who's the sweetest little murder boy. It's a slippery slope, I think, forgiving people simply because they experience something traumatic, and while we want to take things like that into account, softening the view, which is exactly what I've done, and I will do again, because I'm human, it allows space for people to be cruel as long as they can back it up with a traumatic narrative. It's the whole, your trauma isn't invalid, but the behaviors you enact as a result are also not a good thing, and you probably should not be engaging in that. Except when I think about it, what has Wolfboy done this entire time? Sure, he's had bad intentions and he's lied to people, but it's all been in fear and paranoia. None of it's actually amounted to almost literally anything. We've been following him around for ages, and I'm still trying to figure out what he's done that has changed the story in any way. He hasn't, that I recall, done anything, so I sort of feel bad now. Then again, if he could have, would he have done something bad, or did he just want to be the right-hand hound of someone else? Did he just miss being with his friend Gyro, who the king resembles, apparently, unless I didn't understand that right, and let's be honest, I might not have. If the king does resemble Gyro, it confirms my belief that he is Gyro, and it brings into play the idea that Welfin really didn't want to hurt his king. Being the king behind the scenes never meant actually try to usurp, just keep an eye on everything and actually maintain loyalty? And what's he going to do now? Just lay still until the situation's done? Having opened up to Octobuddy, will he remain openly friendly with Octobuddy? Can we just appreciate for a moment how beautiful it is that Ikalgo's determination to stay true to his friends and his willingness to die for them and his desire to show care for them was so powerful that the magic of friendship may have saved his life. Let's just appreciate that, because Killua made that happen. Gon retrieved his friend from his home, Killua travelled with him, Killua was saved by someone else and deemed that someone a friend. While Ikalgo hasn't decided that Wolfboy is a friend, he has essentially turned Welfin into an ally by being who he is. He has unlocked truthfulness. Truthfulness isn't it's a word. Unlocked honesty. It turns out that maybe being unwilling to kill has actually been his greatest strength rather than greatest flaw, and gee, I'm glad, because we need some wholesome crying in amongst all the speculation on humanity, right? Speaking of wholesome, let's wholly finish this up, because that's it from me. If you enjoyed this philosophical querying of humanity, ant-manity, and existence, click here, here, and here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit bells, and I'll see you next time. Dum, 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 get a sandwich.